What's up, everybody? Let's talk data engineering. We got Chris Tabb, Matt on here, usual suspects. Man, Chris, it's been a long time. Last time we saw you, we were
live
in a
together.
cramped hotel, in Boston.
Yeah. It's not quite usual suspects anymore. It's
we had to wear masks as well halfway through, which I think I did get some feedback that some of them were quite happy about that when I put mine on. But
that's
yeah. But
we paid the guy to do that actually.
Well, people don't get reminded about how good looking I am. That's the problem, isn't it?
you're dashing. Yeah, I mean. Yeah, I mean, Matt felt really jealous. So he's like, "Yeah, Chris is wearing a mask, otherwise he'll get a shot in." So.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, I was taller. I was taller than he thought, though, but Matt was smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, awesome, good to catch up again.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, what you been up to?
Nomadic again. So I'm currently in Switzerland. It sounds much more extravagant than it is. I'm just on Zoom calls, looking at the mountain. But tomorrow morning, I'm going to get some mountain time. So I'm going to get out there and
nice.
Man versus mountain and see if I survive. Should be all right.
How are the conditions out there? I don't think they're
rubbish. It's like spring here. I've had no snow here at all since I think it's 8th of January was the last major snowfall. I think we had about 5 centimeters every day, but it was midweek gone before I got a chance to see it.
It's the same here in Utah. Like we're supposed to have the greatest snow on earth, and we sometimes do it, but we haven't had. I mean, we got like a dusting a couple days ago, but that's it.
The sad part is it might be the greatest snow on earth right now. It's pathetic.
Yeah, I don't know. Everyone I know on the East Coast, they get all the snow, and it's like you don't even need it there. Like we
you got no mountains.
Yeah, it's like dump it where it counts. Come on.
Can we get some of that artificial snow from the Olympics? Maybe it's probably terrible.
It looks pretty good for that stuff, doesn't it? So,
well, I mean, we're gonna have the Winter Olympics here, I think, in Salt Lake, maybe in another few years. So I don't know what this is going to be like, if there's going to be a Winter Olympics, or if you'll just have I don't know, ice skating. I guess you can do that inside, hockey. So that would be about it. So anyway, well, cool data stuff. What's been on your mind, Chris? You want to have a few things you want to talk about?
I'll keep it focused on data now, I suppose. I think it's the rise of everyone now focusing on metadata. So I think everyone's realized now that great, you store the data, great, you go and structure it somewhere, but unless you collect the associated metadata about it, you're not able to get the true value out of it. And so I think and driving automation from it as well. And well, you've got your guys specialists, any data science, machine learning, with more metadata, more context, more accurate outputs. So I'm seeing that now that companies are taking that much more seriously. You've got projects now that you're seeing that's always part of a design now. They're capturing quality metrics, capturing the metadata, the file metadata associated to it as well. And the batch, the DAG information, all that collectively adds a lot more value to your data. Is it from forecasting? Is it from understanding that or verifying the quality or assurance of it? Identifying trends in anomalies. You're going to get more value from it the more focus you've got on that. So which is good. I'm quite pleased about that.
Interesting. What types of people are requesting metadata? Like it's something I think for a long time people talked about it, but I'm not sure it was like a serious discussion. It's like, metadata, it's metaverse, it's cool. Like, same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about a product here or something that the metaverse or something like that. But you imagine the additional benefits of having your DAG log information with the associated quality information, with maybe any rejection data that may have come from it, with maybe profiling the performance of the underlying architecture that was going on there, be it Snowflake, be it Redshift, be it whatever tooling is under there. Having all of that together, or maybe the associated cost of what you're processing there as well. All of that in one place that you're able to query and actually get insight from that and make more informed decisions of whether it's spot instances to go and run your load on it at certain points, or whether it's the fact that you have, in fact, predictability on your computer at certain times, or maybe it's like not getting the best value out of your Snowflake warehouses that are underutilized because you haven't got them sized correctly. So yeah, the combination of all that data collectively can either improve business processes, improve cost optimization, or even trust in the data, or the timely fashion, or the assurance of its kite marked processing and an assurance from the business stewards or whoever owns it that it's right or verified.
So let me ask you this. So you brought up an interesting point, which we're seeing more and more lately. You're talking about optimizing Snowflake. You use Snowflake, you use Databricks, you use any of these tools. What do you think about this idea that some people are pushing that we can do away with the DBA? I'm trying to trigger you here, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
or DBAs might trigger them too.
Yeah,
that's also true. Yeah.
Depending on the size of the company and how it's that value. If you're putting in 4,000 rows into Snowflake every now and then, and it's a limited data set, maybe going and hiring dedicated DBA to go and manage your workload on that, it's probably not worth the value. If you're bringing in trillions of rows and you've given democratized of the ability for each teams to work independently, to run their own development, run their own compute, and in those cases, I think you need to have a DBA that's there to say monitoring it or assessing a historical workload. In fact, we're working on something which we refer to as a tuning factory, which is looking at the historical, and it doesn't just have to be about Snowflake. This tuning factory could be wider than that, collecting all the particular metrics from certain workloads that are happening underneath it, understanding, looking at standard deviation calculations historically. They're going to see what's outliers and focusing on where you should optimize. There's no point going and optimizing a query that takes 5 hours once every 3 months. It's focus on the ones that are run 5 times per hour every day. Those are the ones that will give you the best value of optimization. And there's probably a way of putting value of it as well, is that if you've got somewhat DBA, whatever his salary is, if he's spending X amount of his time just investigating the odd query of how it's performing, and it's probably not worth it. But if you've got such a workload that you need to ensure and govern or provide, ensure best practice put in place, they provide a good service and provide that assurance you're doing things right. And then the security aspect of it as well. It's not just about cost. I mean, R back, A back. It's not simple, and with complex pipelines, people releasing code all the time. You need to make sure that you've got a good security model that's enforced. You give everyone sysadmin, they got access to change everyone's objects. You need to make sure that you do have some level of control, but allow teams to self-serve as much as possible.
Yeah, I agree with the sentiment. I've heard some vendors kind of saying you can get rid of the DBA, and I agree with you. Like for really simple setups, maybe, but even then it's kind of dangerous, like for those security reasons, for example. And also because who hasn't seen a team spend $2,000 on Snowflake in a day because no one was paying attention or they didn't know what they were doing? Yeah, it seems like really what's happening.
That's all. I think it's just like kind of marketing hype, though, right? Like, you can get rid of the DBA because they've been saying that for a long time,
right?
Or you can get rid of your engineers and stuff. I think what happens is you just end up focusing on more value add stuff, like you're saying. You aren't like messing around with some optimizing like small queries, whatever, right? Yeah. So you're just doing other stuff.
I think if you rewrote the DBA job spec based on a modern stack, then there is a need for one. If you're taking the DBA title from managing the backups, managing the file management, managing the partitions, managing your redo log information or your PGA or the SGA on going on Oracle, those activities gone. You don't need a person that does all that and has all that knowledge, but you do need someone that can actually do the other aspects that are very important in a modern data stack.
I'll give you an example, man. Like the other day, there was a company that we talked to for a bit, and they had They're using AWS DMS connected to Aurora, and for some reason, like their database was running out of space. I think it was because of the replication log for change data capture, but and so I was going to look at it, but I didn't have any time. So I had my friend who's actually legit DBA look at it, and he solved it in about 10 minutes. This is something that this other team would have taken. I don't know that they would have ever solved it, to be frank. But that expertise of just knowing Postgres internals, how replication logs work, et cetera, et cetera. For write ahead logs. I mean, that's very detailed knowledge that you don't think you need it until you need it, and then you desperately need it.
And I think that's the thing. We'll talk about bringing on the next generation of data engineers. There's things now that, depending on what tool you use, you don't have to worry about some of this stuff. But understanding the mechanics of how it actually, because it's happening behind the scenes somewhere. So even if you don't have to worry about it, or in the situation where on was it Redshift on that one, it does become relevant. But it's not something that people focus on nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of reminds me of when in engineering school, whatever, or even physics, like you need to know a lot of lower level math, but that's only because once you understand the low level fundamentals, are you able to appreciate and fully grasp what's happening at a higher level. But if you're just, if you just kind of take it at face value, I mean, you haven't really reached, I would say, a true level of expertise. You're good at your job, but that doesn't make you an expert, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I think the post about working for the Facebooks of the world, the Googles of the world, you don't really get that full exposure of all of the different things that are required for an end-to-end pipeline or delivering a business product or data product or anything. And I do attribute a lot of my having the visibility of this stuff is I started this industry where we had 3 people in the team, and then we did everything. We did the DBA. We actually went to what we call the pizza boxes, which is the DL380 like compact. Loading the CD. We did that. We spoke to the business units. We did the reporting part as well. We did the metadata part of it. So you got a bit of, we'll be good at all of it. Well, by the end of it, probably, but you got that full end-to-end view of what's needed, and then when you start going to bigger companies, and you see what part of the puzzle you're working on, and I think that's something you don't get in very large organizations, which working with in smaller companies. In fact, it's actually one of the things I was going to bring up today. The size of the company you work in and how they operate. And so we're doing a lot of stuff with SAFE at the moment on a couple of sites, actually. So that SAFE value chain assessments, personas, and if you guys work with much with SAFE, is it something you see on projects?
No, we don't really see it. I don't know if that's just because the types of projects we work on, or if it's a Brit thing. But no, we don't really come across that too much. I think in maybe more bigger companies, I have heard that term thrown around.
It is. It's where waterfall meets. In fact, probably some SAFE purists will be shooting me down. I mean, it's where agile meets waterfall, and with very large organisations with lots of cross-team collaboration. It's probably the only way of you actually attempting to be an agile in a. It's how you're going to compete with the startups that have got the true ability to be true agile and not have to worry about 4 other trains that have dependencies on them. And but something that comes from that is of understanding who your customer is and the business value that comes from that customer. But it's how you translate that into business services or the capabilities in your organization, and then the underlying technologies that support them, and the maturity of the associated capabilities or services in there. And if you try and do that from scratch, start with, okay, let's try and list all the business services you've got, or all the capabilities you need, and everyone has a different name for something, and it can be very challenging. So I think in large organizations, I think using some sort of framework or common sort of blueprint of what these things look like, you can start to bridge that gap between the business requirements or that business stakeholders at the end of the day, the ones actually investing the money, and the development teams actually delivering the code on the ground. yeah, so it was just I was interested to see if you'd seen much of it. We normally see it in larger financial institutes or large retail clients. We've seen it, and it's different levels of it. I think
Yeah.
So going full TOGAF or full safe or half.
I know Matt's getting a kick out of this. So.
Oh, we read a lot of these very kind of corporate traditional frameworks for architecture and such when we were working on our books. So I kind of am getting a kick out of that.
Oh, okay. Is that what float? Use Zackerman and TOGAF is
yeah,
exactly.
Zackerman, yeah, exactly.
Buck and different.
Zackerman framework was interesting.
Yep.
But
I think you do both. You do both frameworks at the same time, and then see if your project takes 15 years.
Well, that's just it. I mean, I do appreciate the fact that people are putting thought into how projects should be structured, and and maybe different ways of doing it. I feel like there's a lot of ceremony with these types of practices in a lot of cases, and the purists probably come after us, but whatever. I think at the end of the day, like a lot of people mistake the ceremony for getting the job done.
Yeah.
So. Because I've seen countless teams just sort of stuck in whatever best practice hellscape they happen to be in. So
yeah, and it's that pragmatic approach, isn't it? I think that's why you never go full TOGAF. I mean, understanding all the artifacts that are in there, but think, do I really need all of them? And it's actually working out when's it appropriate in an organization when actually, if I had one of them, it would solve that problem. But so it's and that's where I think you get purists and everything. And if you get too hung up about it all, and it's never going to work. But knowing them and using them, and I like use your toolkit, your arsenal about. Okay, right. Well, if I use a bit of this, I like to refer to Dharma sometimes as well. Like the Dharma framework. But you never go full Dharma as well. It's like there's just too much in that. So taking a little bit of them and just working out what's appropriate for the organization, for the maturity, for the size of them, for the industry. And then right,
like you want to trigger me, like get a person with a bunch of Post-it notes and a Sharpie at a whiteboard. Because that can go either way. Either it's going to be really productive, or they're going to be super annoying for the next 3 hours.
Or they might be a serial killer too.
They might be, that's
a Netflix show.
Then your life might be over really quick. So, and that might be better than actually sitting through, agile Post-it note hell. So, I don't know. So it can go either way, man. I don't know. I think, but we're all in agreement. It's kind of like best practice for the because it's also best practice for the team. I think everyone wants to try and have this ideal, and I think it's great, but at the end of the day, like you got to deliver something, not just
you got to have some structure. But it's the appropriate level, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
I think so. Yeah, I feel like you have to sort of take these architecture frameworks and make them your own. Not that you want to completely reinvent the wheel, but take the good ideas, right? Like
then open source it, give it to Apache.
There you go. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and then quit your job, like do nothing in your job for a year, develop your framework, open source it, and then start a company. Get VC.
Yeah, that actually makes an enterprise version of that framework,
and then sell it back
to the framework.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, man. What else has been on your mind?
I think it's linked to this stuff as well. It's basically maturity assessment or understanding where the company is on the journey, and I always like to quote, and in fact, on our new shiny website, which you haven't really seen, there's the whole.
What's the URL for your shiny new website?
Sorry?
What's the URL for your shiny new website?
Oh, it's www.leit-data.com. So
I'm checking it out right now. Let's see.
Yeah, no, it's there. I mean, actually, you guys, when I was over in Boston, you saw. Look, we had the options for the different brand. What we were doing.
I told you to go with the.
We went with what you said. It was great advice.
Yeah, purple and hot pink. It was like you should go with the color scheme. You seem to have done it. Just kidding.
Well, yeah, but where was it going before that one?
Data maturities.
Data maturity.
Yeah.
So it's that speed to value and reduction in risk and cost, and budgets. If you have, and we can talk OPEX, CAPEX now, but anyway, if a budget you predict over a certain period of time is linear, it's all it's just flat. If you look at it as the fact that if you actually invest more upfront or actually get a project that actually is like platform foundation focus, process focus, MVP, even the first version of it. Don't have to like solve all the problems. I like the Seattle guy. One of his ones about the modern stack. You don't build it overnight. It's what's the right right time, and then you'll end up adding more value and delivering quicker over the long run. Yeah. I upset him.
He's
gone researching TOGAF or something like that.
Yeah, he's like, oh, jeez. Anyway, he'll be back. What were you saying?
So I think it's helping companies understand that that you're on a journey, and the fact that if you do a bit extra planning at the beginning of your journey, you're going to be able to get to your end destination quicker than maybe just winging it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something that we've seen a lot. And then I think the other lens on that is basically the associated, I like to call it friction. So friction of being able to deliver a particular component or capability or part of your platform. And again, that gets more and more complicated. The larger the organization, you're crossing more and more different departments, all having their own process. Maybe having a sequence as needed between them. Simplifying the moving parts helps. Or if you can't simplify the moving parts, have it coordinated across them all, so it's clear what the end-to-end process is. So, so I think that's what one of the things I'm seeing quite a bit recently is people are more focused on trying to actually how they can deliver quicker.
Yeah, that's interesting. How do you find that right balance between over planning and under planning? Because one of the key ideas of Agile is like, okay, don't spec out everything, kind of have some general deliverables, but like actually just sit down, start doing the work, start testing things, testing code that's almost live, and building.
It is a fine line of balance, isn't it? But it's a balance of keeping your stakeholders happy, but also not letting your stakeholders just drive your team at 100% the whole time. Because if you do it the first time and expect it they're going to keep. You need a factor in that. Every how often you need a hardening sprint or a piece where we go, right, we're going to go back. That RBAC model we did. We had a few holes in it. We did it right. Let's go back. Let's fix that security thing, or because we want other tenants to come on now, so we want to make sure that we can control it. And I think if as part of planning your data product or anything, you say, okay, I always know that every however X many, we're gonna collect what we put down on our technical debt register, or we need to refactor register, or keep track of that stuff and allow your team to focus on that, because you will end up moving quicker or faster as well, because I've seen it so many times, sticky back plaster here, or we just do a quick hack here. It's unsustainable. So that person moves on, lose the knowledge. You've got a very fragile data platform.
Interesting. Matt, can you say something real quick?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Check your mic real quick.
Clipping earlier, but
yeah.
We're a bit better now. I think the other really key thing, and Joe and I talk about this a lot, the old school way of planning was part of the problem, right? It's not just planning. It's also, it used to be command and control, get like the top executives of the company together to make decisions. And what Joe and I advocate for a lot is just more communication. So not just working as like these agile silos where it's like, okay, software development is over here, data engineering is over here. And so software engineering changes something and it breaks data engineering. And data engineering needs better analytics, but they can't get the software development team to change anything on their side. And instead saying, okay, we're each being agile, but we're going to communicate. And data engineering is going to be say, hey, it would be really great if we had this metric in near real time. And then we could feed that back into your app. We could actually have it show up in a dashboard for your customers. And then software engineering could say, okay, well, we could change our, start streaming events that go to Mongo also to your system, and then you can process them and send them back.
Well, this is the workflow we're seeing a lot more. I would say we're getting out of, I would say a lot of our work nowadays is getting out of kind of the traditional BI. That certainly still happens. Don't get me wrong, but we're starting to see more data apps data product kind of work where like the end product of a software app is data, right? So a lot of embedded analytics. These are the sorts of use cases we're seeing, and that requires a lot tighter integration with software engineering data teams that traditionally, was just decoupled. Like software does this thing over here, data does this thing over here. A lot of cases don't even know each other, or know what each other do. But I think that's becoming a thing of the past. As you're starting to see kind of like front, BI being, I would say data being more front and center for end use cases. So.
Yeah, I've always advocated, that data community. And I think people have asked, whether a data strategy should be business led or whether technology led. And I think it's neither. I think if technology led, you'll have the best, shiniest platform, which probably won't satisfy the requirements you got. And if it's business led, they won't understand the implications of some of the things they're driving, and it won't. So I always say it's community led. If you get that nice data community built with a nice blend of with business stroke technical people, and I think product focused people sit between them. I think that really helps. But the other thing that I was going to bring up as well is we've talked about having data catalogs and things like that, and people understanding ownership of data assets. We're thinking of like that, and maybe not the ownership of them, but the associated quality to them as well. But what I've seen and I think is linked to that community thing is having a data platform asset register, which is actually a combination of data assets, but also maybe algorithms, maybe infrastructure, maybe a DAG, maybe a security piece, maybe a utility, maybe a stored procedure. And the thing you talked about earlier is, that's really cool. I work on that. Having that to bring a community of data engineers, data people together that want to do good things, you'll get more collaboration. You'll get more of what I call it that crowdsourcing of code, people writing back to central things, and building a community about some of those components, and it becomes less of I'm using Informatica, you're using this. Well, hold on, but why don't we use this alternative? Both use this alternative one. Now we know it's out there. So
right.
Yeah.
Or maybe it isn't like kind of a binary sort of thing. Like either you're going to use Informatica or something else. But I would say for big companies, it's kind of like, I think you're onto something though. Maybe this is a different way of looking at how you catalog assets. Because I think to your point, there's data catalogs. Those have been around forever. There needs to be, I think, more of kind of a holistic catalog too. Because how often do you see this happen where there's like data teams, they don't even know the sort of procedures that are in a database, for example. Or how maybe Informatica works, and then on one team, some other team has like DBT and Fivetran working, totally opposite type of stack, but they all are at the same company. I guarantee you, this is a company in the world that has this happening.
Probably many.
Many.
100%. But and they've got maybe 3 different pipeline mechanisms to bring in, and and if they know they're all there. The best one would win. Think, okay, we might as well go to this, or maybe even sharing some components. They might call the same data quality API or the same same metadata parser or something as they're going through. So there is some real gains with having ability for collaboration and sharing knowledge and crowdsourcing data platform assets.
Yeah, but how do you get people to use this? I think that's always been the central crux is like, as I see all these vendors coming into the companies like, hey, you should try our new cataloging tool, or you should try our new dictionary tool. And people are like, hey, I got a lot of work to do. So can you go away?
Yeah.
People are motivated until they have a problem to solve, right? It's when they can't find data and they have to walk around and talk to 50 different people trying to find it. That's when they get motivated by a tool like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same problem with those enterprise data catalogs as well. I mean, they're a brilliant idea, but no one's motivated to maintain them. I always advocate having data stewards and that. I've never seen a golden example where someone is oh my god, my data is I'm gonna go and let everyone know. It's there isn't that attachment to a data. It's more of a, oh, by the way, you got this job, but you're also going to own this as well. That's part of your job title as well, or part of your job description. So, I think the only way of promoting that I think it's more about seeing that they can deliver quicker. I mean, the whole value I always see everyone building something was the end game. If I'm able to get that data in front of that user that's now solved their problem, that they're really happy, I'm happy. And that was something that used to drive me, to get to that n factor dimensions from going all the hops where it's got. And I think the same is that with all engineers or anyone. I know you're recovering data scientists. I'm sure you're the best part that you got was getting that output, that algorithm that proves something or was able to provide that insight. It's that bit rather than your data prep that you love doing.
Interesting. Got a couple comments here. Jenny Barnes says, people moving on all the time is a business-wide problem. People in the business teams need to be excited about the benefits that are coming. There's probably a bit to unpack here.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jenny. I know we're friends and we do some work together. So I mean, the people moving on and leaving that. Well, that knowledge goes with them as well. So yeah, I think good documentation, which is also another thing that's not always well done. But if you have a nice collaboration tool that's had that, maybe the history's kept there. Maybe it's reduction of friction of these developers if they have to go and put it somewhere else. But if it's in like maybe a nice UI where they've got their integration to their SQL editor and it's got Git integration to it as well, and maybe it's even connected to Slack or something like that. If it's all there, it's now your frame that you work with him. And if you can make it low friction and add the additional value, no one's going to take it unless it makes their life easier. They're not going to do it because it's on their objectives unless they've got a big bonus against it. For sure. Yeah. And this is something we've been thinking about a lot too at Ternary, how to, have people focus on the most value add stuff and automate the rest of it, frankly. This is something, because then nobody needs to know about it. It all happens in the background. This is something I'm ruthlessly pushing on and thinking about nonstop right now. Just like, we're engineers. We can write code. How do we automate like almost every process? And then have people focus on the most value add stuff. Because again, friction comes from, in a lot of cases, manual effort being repeated over and over again. And if you can get rid of that and focus on the high value stuff, then that's awesome. Then you don't need to worry about knowledge transfer because it's kind of like it's all written in code. Code self-documented. It makes sense.
But I have a kind of there's a funny statement I want to answer. So Martin says statement. An API is the whitewash tool of the lazy data developer. I'm guessing reading that. So thoughts on this?
I don't use APIs, so I'm also not lazy.
I know it feels like a troll, but I don't know. I disagree with this. I think everything should be an API, and I think the being lazy is a good thing. And so I would say that's a I'm not sure what to read into it, but I saw a post and thought it'd be worth discussing. What do you think about this, Matt?
I mean, it depends on what you mean. I think for moving large amounts of data around between organizations, the straight up old school like request and response API design is not great. It's just not efficient. I like the hybrid model where it's like you call an API and it dumps it into an S3 bucket for you. If it's a lot of data, it kind of generates a report, or you connect up a stream or something using some more native technology like Kafka or Kinesis or something along those lines. I kind of feel like that's where we're going for large volumes of data. Because again, if you've dealt with trying to move a lot of data, just using, paging through and all this stuff, it's very awkward.
Well, it does suck. But then I think it depends on what you're trying to do at the end of the day, right? Like,
that's right.
I've always been of the opinion that if you have a high volume of things that you need to do, like that's not a report, for example. That's an automation. And then you get a report about what happened with the automation. But like, you're kind of stupid if you're thinking, oh yeah, I'm just going to have an API connected to a report dashboard. I'm just going to look at all my real-time data coming in. Like, what action are you going to take off of that? Automate it, have a robot do it for you.
They do provide a layer of abstraction as well. Because your alternative is, okay, you're just going to give a JDBC connection to your database,
or email an Excel file. You can do that too.
I'll give them sysadmin access as well.
So, I mean, I would say that I do agree with this, but I don't think for the reasons that Martin says. Like, I do think APIs are awesome. Are they a whitewash tool? Sure. Is being a lazy developer a bad thing? Not at all. I think that you should strive for extreme laziness as a developer and focus your attention on the things that matter. If you have to write an API to do that, go for it. So Mike Nash asks, "Hey chaps, hope all is well." Do you guys call each other chaps over in the UK? Is that
all the time? Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Matt
and I will.
the
Data engineering chaps.
Yeah, we got to start calling each other that, Joe.
I'm from Wyoming, and so when you say chaps, it's like a cowboy thing that they wear, like the leather pants. But he says excellent points on collaboration and blend of technical business. How do you manage projects or shift thinking with difficult or stuck in the mud clients? Ooh, spicy question.
Yeah.
Let you take that one, Chris.
Give me the tough ones. Yeah. I think it's giving the path out of the mud. Okay, so if those clients can't quite understand, the technology thing, you need a cloud data warehouse, or you need this thing, and they can't understand what it's giving them. So I think if you're able to articulate that into business value, and I know we've talked about what business value is, and maybe business value is reduction in friction of how you do things. If they are able to see that okay, right, well, that's how I am now. If I do this technical thingy over here and that other thing that other guy wants and that, I get this, which equates to me getting my big bonus. I'm going to support that project. So, and I think it's I'm going to say, so another thing is, very large consulting companies can come in and they can go and give you the best PowerPoint presentation in the world, all of it. But unless it's linked to reality of how you're going to action that and actually be able to deliver on it, the second time that someone comes into it, you're never going to believe in it. So you need only those things linked to the activities that are either planned, known, or you've given solutions for it. And I think with that, I think it's easier to convince, or maybe clients that are maybe not as agile as they'd like them to be, or maybe technology fearing companies as well.
What do you think about stuck in the mud clients, Matt?
It's a hard problem to solve. One of the things I found is that if you can convince engineers and architects that they could just start experimenting with architecture. So for example, you can go through the 10-month approval process of Snowflake and then map out all of your schemas in advance. And then you'll probably stand up Snowflake and discover that your schemas are not optimized for Snowflake and they're actually optimized for SQL Server. And then you have to rip them out and change them. Or you can say, you know what, why don't you guys just start trial accounts and turn this on? And then at some point, we'll create a couple of areas. We'll create a production area. We'll create like a dev test and just start doing stuff in the sandbox dev test area. And when it starts working, let's move it into production and we can gradually migrate tables. I think that one nice thing about the cloud is that it's like giving a kid a new really cool toy, which I don't know if they even have toys anymore, if it's just video games or something, but they just start playing with it. They start playing with
my house would beg to differ.
Yeah, that's right. Your house is like a super fun Lego site or something like this.
But that's just Joe stuff.
Yeah, that's just mine. That's not my kids.
But anyway, I mean, the cloud, it's kind of like a Lego set, right? Like kids, sometimes they'll follow the instructions, but usually they just take the bricks out and start playing. And yes, at some point you do need some process to say, okay, these are going to be our official schemas, but it's actually very helpful to get in and just start playing around and building with things. And I think that can be helpful to move clients toward an agile process, because in the past, part of the reason for not doing agile was that if you wanted to adopt a new database on-prem, it was like a multi-million-dollar contract. So of course you can't just like play around with that. No one has that kind of money. But in the cloud, you can. Obviously, you want to be careful so you're not accidentally spending $1 million.
Well, let's do the thought experiment and say that you have an on-prem customer who uses Waterfall.
Yeah.
Right. But you still want to add some value there. I would say maybe another approach is just, I've always found this, regardless of the situation, like people at the end of the day, they need to feel like they own the outcome. Yeah. And so you really need to put the power in their hands and say, look, I'm just here to help you. At the end of the day, like which option? So I provide people options. Say, which one do you want to do? And they have to make it feel like it's their idea. Once it's their idea, they own it and they own the outcome. Until that happens, I just found it's very hard to, especially with technologists, because they're very opinionated typically, and so forth. And you really have to feel like you're in charge, right? Like especially if you're a consultant coming in, it's incredibly difficult because there's some animosity in some cases. It's like, well, who's this dweeb over here? Who's making more money than I am, telling me what to do? I know how to do my job. And so I think Matt and I hit on this early on, where our approach, was to teach people how to be better versions of themselves. We would rarely touch keyboards, in fact, because we're like, we want you to touch the keyboard. The moment you start touching a keyboard, by the way, is the moment you become mortal, because now you're just another version of that person. And so I would say like the jujitsu move is actually flip it on its head and say, look, like which option would you want to do? You know, I can walk you through the pros and cons. At the end of the day, this is, you own this. I don't, you know, and I want you to own this.
You always get sued if you give them the wrong answer.
So they, you know, they, yeah. So, but that's, yeah, I always feel like empowering people though, at the end of the day, like that's how you get people out of the mud, right?
You take people on the journey as well. And
yeah,
you want to, and people don't like to be forced to tell them that that's the right thing, because unfortunately that people don't always give the best advice. So you want to give them a good, pros and cons of each of them, a fair assessment over it, and just let them see what's the best for them, because they know their business better than you because they're living it.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. I mean, how would you feel if somebody came, you know, to you and started telling you how to do stuff? Like, this is how it's going to be. I noticed with my coach, right? So one of my CrossFit coaches, that's where I learned it from. It's like, he's like Yoda. He's like, okay, so like, what do you want to do? Like, why are you even here? You know? And he always reminded me of that too. When things get tough in workouts, he's like, why are you doing this? Ask yourself that. You know, he's not going to try and badger you around and, you know, call you a wimp and, you know, kick you in the gut or something, like kind of boot camp style.
You have to pay extra for that.
Yeah, I pay extra for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just, shoot to the face. Ask DevOps asks, recently seeing a lot of discussions on ETL versus ELT. ELT seems fancy too. Any insider opinion, please share.
Oh, well, you got.
I mean, Chris,
ETL's old going. I always like that data has gravity, and you push all the computation or anything you do as far close to data as possible. ETL was born because the underlying databases that we were running on weren't either too expensive to run all your load on it, or weren't designed to run the sort of crunching that were going on. So you did that transformation on the fly, you extract it, transform it, load it. I think they both still have their place in some cases. I think, but if you're a data engineer, majority of the stuff should be ELT. I think the reverse ETL thing now of spitting it back out in from your data platform, maybe back into Salesforce or something, to give maybe some customer lifecycle value calculation that you just want to crunch back in there. And I suppose that because you're transferring it out, and if you're putting it into them, I suppose that's sort of doing a bit of, maybe it's not a reverse ETL, maybe it is. Yeah, no, the transformation's going on the fly of it. So there's, that's making it come back to life a little bit. But I'm an ELT fan all the way nowadays.
Yeah, it's funny. The funny thing about ETL is that it's kind of making a comeback through a variety of cloud products such as AWS Glue and Azure Data Factory and Google Data Fusion. And they're all like sort of rewarmed Spark with a big wrapper around it where they'll extract data and then transform it and load it into your database for you. But yeah, it does seem like the world as a whole is going more toward an ELT pattern. And then the question is too, if I'm in a data lake, is it ELT or ETL? What do I call it?
But I think what's going to happen though is the rise of streaming. Actually, gets the ETL come back with a vengeance, because everything's in flight, right? Everything's actively queried and transformed on the fly. And so
RTL, replication transform load, isn't it?
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Joe's guilty of unfortunate coinages as well, I believe.
Yeah, BLT for reverse ETL. Like, I think it made sense as bidirectional load and transform, right? Like reverse ETL, I kind of feel is neither.
It's not like reverse. I mean, reverse ETL is like TLE. That's what it is. It's like...
Yeah, exactly. Or LEAT. So hey. But yeah, I don't know, and I think it's just an order of operations. I kind of had an epiphany too. At the end of the day, everything is still ETL, no matter kind of how you slice it. And so at some point you have to extract that and transform it again, right? Really? What's that?
So it depends where you're doing your orchestration.
It's all about order, all that orchestration, order of operations.
If your orchestration is controlling everything that's going on, it's a bit of TL, it's a bit of EL, and it's throughout the whole journey. So it's just a mishmash. And I think I like to say horses for courses. So if you do have your separate orchestration that's being done, then you're using the right transformation at the right point of that data's
Yeah,
journey.
although last week I had my friends from Maroxa on showing off Conduit, which is their new SDK for creating data pipelines directly in the application. And I think this is like the dark horse in data engineering, actually, as software engineers becoming data engineers by proxy. I think this is sort of where the world's going to be going over the next few years, is like streaming kind of application first data engineering. It sort of inverts the entire notion of a modern data stack, so to speak. Like, why do you have to use the data stack as it is? I think we kind of take that for granted, but like, you're using tools that work, but it feels like we're also shoehorning a bunch of practices into like data warehouses, for example, where they're not really built, especially when we're talking about modern data applications that are much more suited for events, and just sort of like fast transactions and so forth. Like, why is it that we're even doing it this way? I suspect that there's going to be definitely a sea change and maybe, a bit of a reaction to kind of how we're doing things now. Because if you look at the modern, like my friend Devaris from Maroxa, I mean, he was actually at the DBT podcast. I think he said something like, there's nothing really modern about the modern data stack. Like, nothing's really changed since the 60s in terms of what we've been doing here. So
the funny thing, go ahead.
What's that? No, I mean, you're in the cloud and you're using SaaS products, but I mean, tell me one thing that's like fundamentally different.
And I think the funny thing is that developers do this stuff all the time anyway, and it's terrible. And really what they need is just the right tools to do it, if that makes any sense. Like, we see people building data stacks out of Ruby and it's a big mess. And it's like, okay, if we could just have the right tool set, they might actually be able to build something nice as developers.
Mm-hmm. So I think you might trigger a thought, really, because the whole thing about ETL was putting up an application server, which you're streaming the data through that application server to do some calculations or transformations, really, while it was on the fly. I suppose if you think of, you're talking about streaming. So if you have the streaming data and you want to do transformations from maybe other multiple data sources too, because just maybe that one stream doesn't give you all the insight you need to make that decisioning that real time. So maybe there isn't. Maybe that's the product we're talking about. Being able to bring any of that other data to the pipeline to get it, as that decisioning as early as possible.
Yeah.
I think that's next. The reverse ETL was that first thing where your data platform now became part of your whole business process. Before it was downstream, it was at the end of your, not even had DR sometimes. But now that full circle, and I think what you're saying there is that real time stuff or streaming use case is another one that may bring that whole data warehouse back around.
So when you look at kind of how things should be in order of operations, I've been nerding out on process mapping and stuff too.
I saw it. I saw your post.
This is an ancient book I had on my shelf, and I was like, oh, this is great. But as you kind of go through the order of operations, like, so many of the errors could be fixed if you address them at the source. Like, why are we talking about all these data quality checks and stuff in the data warehouse? Like, you're little too late at that point, So
I used to put a data quality firewall, and I think I did a post quite a while ago in that, and it was always the data warehouse's fault. Oh, look at this bad data on my data warehouse. No, it's because you idiot developers didn't put a flipping date format thing on the form at the beginning, or they allowed you to put like a varchar for the numbers, or they didn't put, you had to make it a mandatory field or whatever other thing that we're being blamed for when it's in the data platform. No, it was you move that data quality firewall as close to the inception or the receiving of that data, and the closer it is there, the better quality it is. But yeah, that's a tough one to try and solve.
You make a lot of friends when you call them idiot developers too. That always smooths things over.
It's only the front end ones that don't know how to write a form. That's it.
Idiot chaps, I guess you call them over.
Not the guys who did my website. They're rock stars. They do a great job. You guys rock. I've got them doing some more change at the moment, so I don't want them to bring it down.
They're going to go with the color changes I initially requested then. So
I didn't know about them until now. Those were not adequately communicated. So thanks, Chris.
That's cool. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting kind of seeing where the data world unfolds over the next few years. Like, I think it feels like we're at the end of a certain stage right now, and I think entering maybe a new one. It feels like that right now. It definitely feels like we're at an inflection point.
We're going to call it era. Is this what we're going to name this one? Let's create a new term. So if this is the era of the metadata or the
or the modern data set, sure, I kind of have an aversion to that phrase, but yeah, I mean, I think that's been the case for like, since 2015, it's been sort of the stack du jour, but it feels like a lot of things are going to be changing. I know the modern data stack people will be like, oh yeah, but like whatever you call the next thing, that's also a modern data stack, and it's going to continue being modern until like for another 100 years.
When does a modern data stack become a legacy data stack? At what time in its life cycle does it become legacy, or does it go halfway between? Is it like just current data stack?
Well, let me ask you this: so, like, when do the current suite of vendors just become like sort of the legacy vendors, like Informatica or what the equivalent of that? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Informatica, but they're kind of old. Matt, where'd your video go? Oh, there you are. For your audio.
He was just calling Informatica.
There we go.
That,
yeah, I mean, we're just trolling, and you just left.
I know. I missed all the fun. I mean, let's trash talk for just a second here. I would say that we're already kind of there with Cloudera, right? Cloudera was really, really hot 5 years ago, 6 years ago, so maybe 7 years ago. Not so much anymore. I mean, I think they're still doing all right, but like no one says, "Hey, Cloudera is the future." No one is saying that, except Cloudera,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, there's a certain aspect about the hype thing there, is because, I mean, you looked at how many Cloudera. From my experience of what I've seen out there, 80-90% of them are all failures or didn't actually probably get the value that they had. I think we've moved on a little bit, like the modern data stack, the Snowflakes, the Google. Yeah, they've proven. They do what they say on the tin, and they've been proved. Whereas it was a lot of hard work to go and get what Cloudera or Horton DataWorks claimed you could get out of their platform.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I think, I hate to say it, but the space is evolving so fast that some of the really hot vendors right now are going to be extremely successful, and some are going to be outmoded fairly quickly and eclipsed by something else within a couple of years.
Well, yeah, and the thing I'm looking at too is I think there's going to be consolidation in the industry really soon. Yeah. But then you have all these niches, like who once you're successful in your niche, so you're one of the top 1 to 2 vendors in that niche, you're going to have to start branching out into other niches, right?
Then you upset market. People.
Yeah. And that'll be fascinating to watch, this whole kind of Game of Thrones stuff.
Yeah. So. I'm relating it back to the days where IBM, Oracle, and SAP went and like bought up everyone else. So you had IBM went and bought Cognos, TM1, probably some other things as well, and then what was a market leader became very much an ecosystem. You had to go IBM to get any value. You had to go IBM everything, and it was never cheap. They're saying Oracle did the same thing with pretty much every product they made, but they got apart from the databases. For example, Synopsys became ODI, OBIE, which was originally Siebel Analytics, and all the rest of it. So, and then it becomes again another closed ecosystem. It never advances. It just becomes dormant. And that I think that caused the big movement for the open source stuff, because people couldn't afford all those things, and it wasn't really doing all the things that people wanted to do in the future. And then that mix and match approach came in, and I think what you're just saying there is that mix and match is that there's too many. They need to consolidate a bit. And
how do you pick a tool these days, right? It's insanely crowded. Like so tell me, ingestion tools. I mean, Matt and I have our handful of go-tos, not going to name names, but they're partners of ours. You can look them up on our site. But in ingestion alone, there's several dozen companies.
Yeah, there is. And I think I always like to keep honest as well. Is like if I'm talking to any of my clients now, it will be what I believe is the right one for them. It was never about, I always say I'm technologist first, a salesperson second. And the right one is right for different people. And it could be, re-architecting what's there. It could be their pricing model. It could be the team that they have there and how they can do it. It could be the appetite for risk, going open source. And going back to the thing you mentioned earlier, Joe, is that I'll give them the advice. I'll give them the options. And this is I might give a recommendation based on what I've seen, based on some assumptions or some requirements they've given me, which they can verify. But if not, they have all the other options there as well. I think that's how I'll help shortlist, and I'll help give the best advice.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the best way to do it. Yeah, I don't think we'll ever come in and pitch like a single product at any situation, just because we always want to give people options. And again, it's about putting them in the driver's seat and saying, look, I mean, at the end of the day, this is what you're going to be living with. You need to make the call.
Yeah.
So,
and we're always reviewing our vendors to see if they are the best ones in there.
Exactly.
If we think they're not, we swap them out.
Yep. Same thing. Thing. I guess my kids are home now. My dog's barking.
It happened last week. They went mental as well, didn't they?
She likes to make herself known.
She stands in front of the window, and the kids walk across the street to get home from school. So when she sees them, she gets very excited. So anyway, sounds like they're inside now. Let's see here. Maybe Mike Nash asks, this will be the final question before we have to wrap up. Maybe the new modern stack will be built with super agility. I think so. Yeah.
Well, it needs to be. Yep.
Yeah.
Faster, quicker, better.
Probably the ability to swap things out quickly too, right? Like I think that's part of agility and Matt and I write about this too. Just when you're architecting, architect for reversibility and trade-offs, right? Like be able to make reversible decisions. Don't go all in, especially right now. When there's so many vendors out there and so many open source products, it's really hard to choose. So I would say that just be wary, or be willing to swap things out and just be agile in that regard. Exactly. Things are changing so quick. And the cool thing is we're in the golden age of data tools right now and data products. This is an awesome time, if you're building a data stack, but it's also a terrible time because it's horribly confusing on what to choose. So.
Yeah. And Joe, you and I have talked a lot about data modeling as well. And I feel like that's going to be right in the middle of this conversation too.
Yep.
Right. I mean, data modeling touches every stage of the life cycle. Every tool you use, data modeling matters. And when we say data modeling, Chris, we don't necessarily mean like strict Kimball or something. I think part of what we're seeing is that
strict Inman.
Yes, exactly. Well, but the funny thing is, Inman is like a big Databricks advocate now, and I think he's kind of moved on to like
he's my new mate.
More flexibility.
Are you your new mate?
Yeah, he's commenting. He's been commenting on some of my posts recently. He's been causing a bit of a debate going on there. So
check out Chris's profile for that. That sounds fun. What's he been saying?
Well, I'm going to ask him to sign my book that I had from. I did a post on about foundations of it was a guy in a forklift that knocked down the whole warehouse. And I said focus on the making sure you got good foundations and building a data warehouse.
Interesting. That's cool. I mean, one thing Matt and I have been thinking about, and we may actually just end up writing a book on this, is new streaming techniques, or not streaming, but modeling techniques. Modeling hasn't changed really since the last big thing I saw was Data Vault, the big revolution. That was in 2000. I mean, tell me, what's new since the big ones? You got Inman, Kimball, Data Vault, Beam to some extent, but there's really nothing new, and especially with streaming. I think there's no real paradigm for data modeling yet in streaming. And I'm excited about this. Speaking of which, on streaming on the Monday morning data chat coming up next Monday, we have Shruti from Roxette. We're going to be talking about all things streaming. I actually asked her a lot about data modeling. That's how we got in contact, because it's a question that's been on my mind a lot lately. Like, what's the equivalent in streaming? Yeah. And I haven't heard a good answer. I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of experts in the field, and everyone's like, "Oh, you just don't need to model." I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And
I think that thing we mentioned earlier about being able to load data in that you can combine with it might actually give a justification for you doing that. You need something to hook things onto.
Yeah.
So, our Boston April will come over as well.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Well, the meet up. I'm still trying to figure out. Are you going to be in Boston in April? You said.
Well, I think so. Yeah, I got back to Switzerland by the 8th of April. So.
Oh, cool. I'm still waiting to see if I'm going to be talking at a conference. I think Matt and I have been doing a workshop, but we'll see.
Last shout out, Skiers in data. So there's going to be in December. Watch out on LinkedIn. We'll probably talk about it next week more. But Joe's even threatening to come over to Europe and actually.
We're going to go ski in the Alps.
Yeah, we got snow.
Yeah.
You're right.
Is this just a scheme for promoting Snowflake? Because it kind of sounds like.
No. We're going to talk
I mean,
data
I
stuff.
know.
I'm going to get an inspirational skier to talk about stuff. We're going to drink
Like
stuff.
Glenn Flake or something.
Yeah, we're gonna, yeah.
That sounds like fun. Just
Yeah,
snow park and like
Speaking of snowflakes, so we got a couple events coming up next Friday, actually, for Let's Talk Data Engineering. I'm pretty sure we're going to be doing an event with Snowflake. I got my friends Jeff and Brock, 2 engineers from Snowflake, going to be chatting about cool things at Snowflake. And then if you're in Salt Lake City on March 1st, please sign up for the Data for Breakfast down at the Grand America. We're hosting this with Snowflake. It's going to be awesome. The first big in-person event in ages. Come check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Matt and I are going to be running a 2-hour, almost 2-hour workshop on Snowflake. So if that doesn't get you excited enough, the Grand America is also like a very nice hotel. So,
and if you're in the UK, go to on the 4th of March. We're hosting a Snowflake breakfast as well.
Perfect.
But Chris Edge is running that one anyway. So
nice.
Yeah, watch out for that space as well.
This is going to be awesome.
We're in tune. We're in tune.
Yeah. You're basically like our chaps overseas, or our cousins or brothers.
You're the dudes with the chaps.
Yeah, Colleen put a link in the chat here for anyone on LinkedIn. Yeah, please sign up. It's going to be great. Like I said, it'd just be great to see everybody too. Like nobody's seen each other for a long time, so it's like a new thing. It's in person stuff. It's it's crazy.
Old school become new school.
It has. It really has. It's kind of like ETL and ELT. So we'll kill it, man. We got to bounce. But thanks to the audience. Have a great weekend. And if you're in the US, have a great extended weekend if you're taking Monday off. So again, Monday morning data chat coming out. Also, Data Nerd Herd is now available as a audio podcast. You can check that out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts. I might turn this into a podcast too. I might just start uploading these to be dope. So Chris, glad to have you on again, man. It's good to see you. Missed you a lot. So
brilliant.
Yeah. All right. See you guys. Bye.
See you. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.